Hello everyone, let's walk through how to terminate coaxial cable. In this case, we'll be dealing with RG6 coaxial cable, 18 gauge, and this is dual shielded. This is a bit easier to work with than if you're working with quad shielded, but it's not that much different, and if you're going to start out, this is probably the easier option. I'll talk about quad shielded as we get to the point where we're stripping this cable. So let's start out. First things first, I'm wearing glasses, partly because I'm old and I need them, but also you should be wearing glasses when you do this type of work. So I encourage you, get a pair of specs. If you already have a set, great. Otherwise, get some safety glasses, please. Now, let's actually work through how to terminate the cable. First things first, let's say you had it. I usually use lineman's pliers and I just snip it according to length. I'll just do this for example, and I've got here. And now I have, let's say you've cut it now, you prepped it. Next thing would be to strip it. And so in this case, I'm going to use a tool that's specifically made for stripping purposes. Let me tip it so you can see. In the shadow there, you can see RG59/6/6Q. That's for the quad shielded. I'm just dealing with standard 6, RG6 here, so this will work very well. This tool is set up in such a way where it makes it pretty easy to do this. I'm actually going to, as we work with this, notice, let me get it so you can see just barely there. You can see that it shows how the cable should be positioned. You enter from this side, and if this is in position, we slide this up. This serves as a stop for this base, so that way it's a guide to show us, hey, only push it in this far and it will be a good cut. It's going to handle all this measurement for us. So if I didn't have this in place and I pushed it in, what would happen is I would have to use my finger here on the end and try and make it comes up flush with the edge. That's difficult to do. Here I just slide up that guide that serves as a stop, and let's actually do this. So I squeeze in. Now, I'm just going to wind it around. I don't have to be quite as cautious as I would be for shielded twisted pair or unshielded twisted pair. With that, I make sure I only go just short of one circular motion to score the cable. In this case, I'm fine doing a couple each way, and then you just quickly pull off. So let's see. Look at what we have here. Now, this, you might wonder why the guide is in place. Why not just have something there permanently? Well, when we pop this down and then we squeeze, it makes it easy for us to eject the remnants. So now this is all set for the next job. It does its work. I don't know if I can get it so you can quite see inside there, but the way it works is it actually has two blades inside. One is, there we go, you can see a little bit. There's two blades. One is a little bit longer than the other. I misspoke. One is positioned in such a way where it's going to cut deeper than the other. And by having these dual blades, it handles these two stages of the cut. We have one cut that comes right up close to this main conductor. And then we have another cut which scores the cable all the way around and lets us pull off the cable. So here's that just scored the cable, that pulls off. And then we have the other cut which cuts through the dielectric medium there that we see, that white. It cuts through that right down close to the conductor. We don't want to nick the conductor, though. That would actually damage its ability to transmit signal. So we have this done. Now, we have a few different types. We have two different types of F connectors here. This one is a old school crimping style, and this one is the compression fitting. With the crimper, we actually use a pair of crimpers here. I've got this crimper will actually squeeze down onto this neck here of the F connector, and it's going to essentially pinch it in on the cable to hold it in place. It's not a consistent uniform pressure. Rather, this is round, and so as it's pushing in, it's hitting in just a few spots. You can see where it's touching. If I look really close, there's a space where it's not touching. It's not going to squeeze down or crimp there. It's just acting on the spots it's touching. And as you squeeze, it's going to actually bend this in onto the cable. These don't work quite as well, though, because it's not a uniform pressure. We don't get an equal amount of pressure all the way around the exterior. For that, we use a compression fitting. And this F connector, what this does, notice there's a space here. You can see carefully, right there's a hole. And this space right here, we're going to take up that space when we compress it. As this gets pushed in, it's putting uniform pressure around the outside of this, and it's squeezing down equally on this cable. It just makes for a better fitting. And it's pretty easy to do. They're about the same in terms of ease. So if you're going to do it, you might as well use, in this case, this is a compression tool from Klein, but brand doesn't matter. They're all pretty similar, and I'll show you how that works in just a bit. Let's finish prepping this cable. It's typically recommended to gently pull the braid down. Let me get this so it's better focused for you, if I can. I'm gently pulling down the braid around the outside so that it's going to wrap around the outside. I'm just getting it started first, and I apologize if you can't see it better. The idea is to have this pulled down around the outside. Our stripper made sure they're all very uniform length. The stripper also did a nice job not actually cutting through all these. Some of them are a little sneaky in terms of trying to hide out up there. And now that they're like this, sort of uniformly bent down around almost like a skirt now on this cable, that is prepped. Now, if you were dealing with quad shielded, you would have one more step. You would actually peel off the next layer of the foil insulator, and then there would be another layer of braid that you would pull back. You typically there's usually something you can even get with your finger. If you use your fingernail, you can usually rip off that next layer of foil, and there will be a braided layer just like this that I pulled back. You pull back the additional layer. In this case, this isn't quad shielded, as it says here on our cable. That says dual shield cable TV or CL2. So I don't have to pull back that foil and get the additional layer of braiding. There isn't an additional layer. So let's start by doing a crimped version. We start to position it here. Notice by the time we get this positioned, all of this braid should be covered. Right now, if you look down into that connector, you'll see the dielectric material is not flush. We want that to be flush with the inside of this. Now be careful as you're pushing this on, that conductor in the center, it's going to feel sharp, and if you push this down in a way where you're not careful, it can slide suddenly and poke you in a way which you're not going to be pleased with. So I'm just putting gentle pressure. I try not to twist too much. I might do just a smidge. I don't want to do any more than I have to. Notice it's almost flush. Let me see if I can get that better here. It's getting close to flush right inside there. Not quite. A little bit more. Let's see. That looks quite flush. Now, I'm going to use the crimping tool. Notice this tool is marked. This says 59 RG and 6U. It's sort of a funny marking scheme, but we want the larger opening here. I'm just opening it up just enough. Now I choose one of the slots here. Now I'm going to squeeze down. Might even do it one more here from a different angle. And that's done. So we have one end terminated. Notice how much is of the conductor is extending beyond the outer coupling of the F connector. We want about 1/4 inch. So you don't want more than that. If you use something like this, it should be, in this case, I'm quite pleased with that distance. Using a stripper like this makes it very easy because we have the guide. If you weren't using the guide, you would have to do a bit more work perhaps. Now, I have one end terminated with that type of connector. Let's actually use the other type. Let's use a compression. So same set of steps. I'm going to move my cable around here so it's not as much in my way. Still in my way, but it's not as much. So I've got the guide in place. I've slid it back up into place. I just push the cable in until it touches the guide. I'm going to do that a couple winds forward, one back. That's just typically what I do. Do what works for you. Pull. Notice another clean cut. Same thing here to empty this. Pull back the guide, squeeze down. We have the cut from the blade that did not go as deep. That was just taking off this outer layer of insulation. And then we have the cut down through the cable, in this case the RG9 cable, which actually goes completely through dielectric, and now it does so in such a way where it's not supposed to nick that primary conductor. Let's prep this. Same sort of steps. I gently work these back. Just be patient. You don't want to cut yourself on the primary conductor. Again, it's sharp. Just pulling that back. Now, make sure I don't have any strays. I do. I usually twisted it in the light a little bit. Now, this is set. I'm going to, again, same sort of thing. I'm going to slide this on. This is a compression fitting. Now, notice. This has, it's set up in such a way where this always feels a little bit easier. It feels like it's easier for me to find the point at which it is flush. So let me just double check. Sorry, I'm trying to get a good source of light. That looks good. Now, let's secure this F connector. Again, we're instead of crimping it, we're going to compress this, and it's going to apply equal pressure all the way around the cable. It's going to be a better termination, typically. So notice, I'm going to squeeze this, and notice it slid together. I'll show you all compared to the other cable. I just make sure it's all the way closed. And this is completed. And notice, you can see it's hard, but right up here, it is actually extending beyond just slightly, which is what we want. Now, let's compare, like I said, this is how a compression fitting looks before. And we'll notice that it takes up the slack right here. All of this sleeve slides in. And as it does so, it pushes in on the cable to create uniform pressure all the way around. With the crimper, again, only certain parts of this surface area of the crimper touch, so it's not as consistent a pressure, which is why it's not leading to as consistent performance or consistency in terms of reliability of connections. So this is the preferred method. Now let's test this cable to see if we in fact succeeded. I've got a tester here, and this particular tester, the way we can do this, I've got it set up on the end. I've got it set up so that it has a male connector up top, male, so that way I can take this F connector and I can put it in place and then screw it on by hand. Now, to test this other end, what I've got here, I've got a faceplate, and I've actually inserted. This is probably what you'd be working with at home if you were installing some type of coaxial cable. These are handy faceplates to work with. This is how it looks when it's not actually inserted. If I were to insert another one, you just slide it in, it pops in, and if you wanted to take it out, you can just apply pressure with a screwdriver at the top, and that will take it out if you get in there carefully. I'm trying not to cut myself here by doing anything foolish. Notice, there we go. So, pops in, pops out. Now let's use this to test. I'm going to screw this on. Actually, I'll put it on the front here, and I'll put a different device on the back. So, to test this, if you have this type of tester, you're actually going to attach something that serves as an end cap that allows you to know to actually perform the test for this tester, we actually have to attach something else. So let's look at what this is. This little kit as part of this tester. Let me move some things around. Try and get all this in the shot. A tool like this typically comes with some other fittings. This one's labeled 1. And so what we could do in a home, if we're testing, if we don't know which run of cable we're actually dealing with, if we're trying to find which cable actually runs to our bedroom, you can put this on one end, and then you attach your meter here on the other, and then you can test. So let's see what I'm talking about. I'm going to actually pop this on here. Now, let's get it so you can see it a little bit better. Notice, so that's on the end here, that's labeled 1. And looking at these icons that are on the buttons, you'll see this one is actually what's meant to represent coaxial cable. So I'm going to push that. And as I do, you can see a few things. Let me get this so it stops moving. It says pass. That's always a good sign. ID 1. If we were to use one of the other numbers, let's say 4. Let me take this out. Sorry, this one's stuck in there. So if I were to attach 4, notice it updated. It now says 4. So it makes it easy if you're trying to figure out which cable runs where in your house. This tests the cable, and this is a very primitive test. It's just making sure there's not a short or an open. But it tests it, and it also identifies the cable. Now, I don't like having one done one way and one done the other. We'll make an update, but before I do, I'll show you one type of testing tool that could also be used. This is very similar. This is much cheaper if you just want to buy one. What we'd have here, notice the color of this is red. You can get kits of these usually, and they're different colors. And notice that there's a red, blue, green, or black on this particular interface. This is how we can also test. I can undo this cable from here. And once we've undone this, I'm going to instead connect it to this. It's a tester which is just focused on the coaxial. This one's called a Coax Explorer 2, but they're all quite similar. I can actually put this on the end, and notice when I push the button, we see it light up and it says pass, but it says pass under the red. Again, same type of idea. If I had a blue terminal here, if I had a green, if I had a black, I could attach them to several different locations, and then in the basement, wherever I'm trying to figure out where all these things run, if I push test here, then I could figure out which one goes where. So this is a pass. That's essentially doing the same thing that the other tool did. Let's update this cable, though. We'll be fast. I just don't like having the crimped version here. I don't like having a cable that's one of each. That said, if you take your time on the crimped, which you can do, I will say I have crimped F connectors that are actually providing my internet, and they hit all of the required speeds that I need. So just for the record, I didn't have a compression tool when I did some of that work, and the crimping has held up. That said, if I do anything new, I'm certainly using this type of connector. So let's Let's start over. Let's get rid of you. Bye. Sorry. No hard feelings. So let's actually get this ready. I'm going to, same type of thing. I'm going to get this prepped. I have the guard in place. Guard, guide, whatever you want to call it. Push in the cable until it touches. 1, 2, 1, 2. I actually did a bit more. So actually, here we go. I'm not going to take time to empty it. I'm just going to leave my mess for later. We'll be fast about this. Again, it makes me think of a grass skirt that we're making around the cable. Makes me want to take a trip to Hawaii. That and the weather we have in Michigan. So, look for any stragglers. I don't see any. Go ahead, push it on. We want it to be, again, flush with this part of the, we have the steel part inside, and we want the dielectric, we want that right up snug there. In this case, it is. We're all set. I get my compression tool. Now watch, I'm going to try and hold it so you can see it as it, so it's going to squeeze that together. Ta-da! Let's test it really quick to make sure I didn't make a terrible mistake. So we get one end set up. This tester. I use the other end here. In this case, this will be number 1. So notice it says 1 right on it there. I'm gonna screw this into a faceplate, in part because I just need the male connection there. And slide this onto the end. Now with that all in place, again, this icon represents coaxial cable. Push this, we have a pass, and it properly identifies that it's connected to the 1 identifier. So hopefully this helps as you work with coaxial cable. When you're working, remember, just as a reminder, wear glasses and remember that that primary conductor, and just one more quick look here, just remember this primary conductor, it can be pretty sharp. Just be careful handling it, especially when you're sliding it, when you're pushing it on, pushing it into place. Don't let this suddenly push through and poke you. It can, not that I've ever been injured this way, but just hypothetically. So, thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day.